The last menus we're going to talk about are down at the bottom here. Two of them are related specifically to animation and will not be useful for this class. This first one is the timeline, and the timeline shows me in frames what my animation would look like. Just make an animation really quickly. I will set a keyframe here, come to the end, and we'll do a little rotation. And I will set a keyframe there. So now as I go through, you can see my animation playback. This animation starts at frame 1, ends at frame 120. Below the timeline, I have the range slider. The range slider controls what's displayed in the timeline, so right now I am starting at frame 1 out of 1 and ending at frame 120 out of 200. If I were to drag this all the way out, now you'd see that my helix rotates and then stops rotating. Ugh. That's because I set frame 120 as it was the last frame I had available, but it wasn't the last frame in this sequence. By adjusting the range slider, I can show any number of frames. I don't have to start at 1, and I don't have to end at 200. Neither one of these will be useful for us as modelers. So if you wanted to, you could go to Windows, UI Elements, and we could close the time slider, and then back again, Windows, UI Elements, range slider. What that leaves me with is the command line and the help line. The help line is this one all the way at the bottom, and when I hover over it, it says displays short help tips for tools and selections, and I love the help line. If I don't hover over it, it tells me what tool I have active. Rotate tool. Use manipulator to rotate object or objects. Shift plus drag manipulator axes or plane handles to extrude components or clone objects. Control Shift left mouse button to constrain rotation to connected edges. Use D or insert to change the pivot position and axis orientation. So that is exactly how to use the rotate tool. Now it may seem silly to have a help line for things like the select tool, select an object, but it's great. If you've forgotten what tool you're in, it'll tell you what it does. And if you're running a more complex command, something like a Boolean operation that requires multiple steps, the helpline will always talk you through what those steps are. So the helpline is really useful, and get used to every now and then just staring down at the bottom of your screen and saying, ah, the helpline displays short help tips for tools and selections. Yeah, woo! Right above that, I have a command line. It's set to MEL, which is Maya Embedded Language. I can also set this to Python and insert Python scripts here. And this is useful if you know MEL or Python. You can use this to streamline some of your processes. Next to that, I have a line that shows me what's happening in the script editor. So right now it says result 10. And every time I do anything important, it'll show me something. For example, if I'm trying to use a tool and something goes horribly wrong, it'll turn red and say, hey, something is horribly wrong, don't do the thing you're doing. The other thing that it can do, I will just click this button here to open up the actual script editor, is it will show me the script that makes up my scene. So you may recall that I said Maya saves two types of files. Maya binary is compressed, Maya ASCII is uncompressed. This is some of the ASCII text that makes up my scene. The reason Maya files are so small is that all they are is just pieces of script. So if I select this object, you see I get this select-r, it's not DNA. Then select -r, funny gear name. Every time I select something, it generates a new line. If I were to make a new object, create, polygon primitive sphere, it would generate a line of script to make the sphere. So this script editor, it's not going to be great for us because we're just starting out, but as you become a more advanced user, it will become better for you because it will help you streamline your process, get rid of some of the silly things that you're wasting time on, and just make your life better and smarter. So those are the windows that I recommend that you keep open, the command line and the help line, and the other two, the time slider and the range slider, kind of irrelevant. Whew, that was a lot, but that's the entire Maya interface, and that is going to be all the interface you need for anything you need to do in Maya. So none of your other classes will go through the interface in that much depth ever again. Isn't that great? Yeah, it's great. At this point, I'm done with the interface, and I personally am all ready to start modeling. So I'm going to give you a quiz to make sure that you are good on the Maya interface too. And when you're done with that quiz, you will be ready to start modeling as well. See you then.